Record. Hey, good morning. 10:01. Let's rock and roll. Welcome to the Hammerdown Roadshow, where we're going to put the pedal to the metal in the hammer down and talk trends, tech, and tunes. My name is Jay Mervis, Healthcare Sales Director here at Fortinet. Welcome to the third installment of our webinar series. I'm here today with Chris Black, Senior Director at Worldwide Technology. The trend today is ransomware. It is no longer a matter of if, but when. I had the fortune of going on a very successful ransomware roadshow with Chris last month. We discussed getting the message out to the broader market. And so, hey, here we are. Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and Worldwide as a firm.
Well, Jay, I'm old, so I won't go all the way back because we just don't have that kind of time on this podcast. But I've been at Worldwide for 15 years and held several positions here at Worldwide. Currently serving as the Senior Director for our Eastern Division's cybersecurity practice.
Wow, awesome. And I'm glad we connected because we talk shop all the time, and this is a good way to bring it up. So the trend, ransomware, getting in front of it, one of the 5 R's that's impacting healthcare lately, and they're all interconnected. 2 of the 5 normally are radiology, rural, resources, risk, and ransomware. Chris, I wanted to get some real life perspective about operational downtimes in the provider space the past 18 months and how real the threat is from the firm. What we're seeing is a major health system in your neck of the woods that had 400 sites down for 3 weeks. A large IDN out west was compromised due to a VPN password. A regional hospital provider in the mid-Atlantic had 230,000 patients impacted for over a month, and then the death of a baby due to ransomware attack being underway in the hospital. Chris, what are you and the firm at Worldwide seeing?
Well, unfortunately, we're not seeing anything different, and it's sad to say it's increasing. Just what was it yesterday, day before yesterday, Lincoln University closed. They shut the university down because of a ransomware attack. They just couldn't recover. And it was just so much. And in the healthcare space, you had the hospital up in Massachusetts that suffered, a catastrophic ransomware attack. So, unfortunately, the trend is continuing. It's increasing, and it's amazing what people know or don't know about protecting themselves against ransomware.
Yeah, and you've seen a significant uptick in what the consulting services and the customers you're talking to. We've seen operational impacts. 41% of organizations have suffered some outage, whether some of it's caused physical security problems. 88% of customers have had one malicious attack, and half of those have had 3. 25% lost business critical data, which is something that your firm has a ton of expertise in. And the average cost of the breach is $6.5 million. Part of this is due to resources. Like I said, resources, risk, and ransomware are pretty much the 3 tied together. And the FBI has said the cyber jobs never to be filled is now up to 650,000 jobs. What else are you and Worldwide seeing that from this trend perspective?
I saw an estimate the other day that said the unfilled cyber jobs could be as high as 1 million now. I mean, it's crazy. If you're a young person listening to this and you're thinking about, what should I do when I go to college? Get into cybersecurity.
And that's interesting, Chris, because there's a variety of different ways to supplement that. So your firm does consulting services, staff aug. I personally think that we've seen a ton of different customers build that pipeline with colleges and junior colleges and developing that talent and getting people acclimated. So day one, when they hire them, they've got an employee that's going to do something productive, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a trend of grow your own in lieu of being able to hire people ready to run. The other big trend we're seeing is, it's amazing how many people I talk to that say, I've got great backup and recovery processes. And it's like, okay, so that's not quite enough nowadays for ransomware. And it's that misunderstanding of how a ransomware attack occurs as to how you unpack that, reverse engineer it and say, okay, this is how to defend against it. Right. And then the other thing that we're seeing is the understanding of the data that's really going to, what's going to keep you running so that you can provide services, healthcare, financial, whatever your mission is. What are those key things that have to be up and running? And there's a massive puzzle when you ask that question. There's this massive debate. Well, it's this app or it's that app, or we got to have this app. And so there's a misunderstanding in most organizations about what exactly is it that's mission critical that's going to keep our business going in case we get attacked by ransomware? What could I restore real quickly and get back up and running? And it's taking the time to understand that and really understand the application interdependencies that makes the difference between success and failure.
Yeah, so everybody is coin operated at some level. Everybody's got bills to pay and they need to eat, right? And many of the things that you're talking about is the interdependencies. And when the time clock and payroll and people can't get paid, things like go to a crawl, and that's not good. So one of the things that we're seeing from a macro trend perspective is third and fourth party risk between billing systems, time and attendance, and those kind of things, Chris. So the interdependencies, do you guys as a firm do the mapping on that from, because this is going to transition us into the tech?
Yeah, no, we do. I mean, we actually wrote a specific homegrown application to do application dependency mapping. And it's a data aggregator. And the other side benefit we found to using this tool is it really helps us with firewall policy migration. So that you're not shutting something off that you should be letting open, and you're not letting open things you should be shutting, right? So it's a really cool application. We do a lot of consulting around, the when you talk about that mission criticality and the software and the device management and stuff, the debate at an oil and gas company about what's your number one app that you have to have up and running, and this massive debate about, no, it's this app or it's that app. Finally, the CFO came in and he goes, "You're all wrong. It's our billing app.
Ding, ding.
If we can't charge for the oil, we're out of business in 2 days." And so every hospital, every manufacturer, every company is going to have that. What is that thing that we have to keep up and running? And we do a lot of work with companies where we will do a complete application dependency map. Then we'll start looking at, okay, if these are the dependencies for this application and you deem that application as being the one, let's make sure that that's the one, and its supporting applications are the ones that are protected in the vault. Doesn't have to be 100% of all your data, all your apps, all your, right? I mean, it'd be nice if you could afford that. And a lot of people would aspire to do that. And there's things you can do to protect that better as well. But I mean, when it comes to that, no kidding, we've just got owned. How do I get back up and running and continue my business? It's a smaller set of apps and data, and usually it's a price point that people are willing to deal with.
Yeah. So when we talk, let's transition over to the tech side of it, Chris. When we talk about, it's no longer if, it's a when.
Yeah.
Tabletop exercises used to be backup and recovery, used to be the weekend drill 3 times a year or whatever to make sure we can do this. Now it's a lot more sensitive. And you talk about the interdependency mapping, the billing, some of that's third and fourth party risk, right? So, pharma companies and their 10K is if our downstream producer can't produce the drug, we're out of business. Or if a provider has billing for a modality that's downstream, then they're not going to get paid. And we saw this with Epic deployments. You talk about, hey, I can't go that far back in my background, but 15 years ago when we were doing the Epic deployments, people had to shut off billing to transition systems. In 90 days, they didn't have any money coming in. So that's right. It's wild. So from a tech perspective and the consulting component of your business, without giving away the farm, because we want someone to meet with us to talk about this, what do you see from a tech perspective on how to leverage things in the new modern world?
Well, when it comes to the vendor supplier, conversation, and you're talking about some of the big pharmas have as many as, 30,000 suppliers, right, that are involved in the business. And how do they know that they aren't the reason that they're getting owned, right? And so the way that they're starting to manage and move toward more of a zero trust mindset as it relates to how I connect to my suppliers, digitally, and how I control their access and how I limit their application access, right? The segmenting of those things has become a big trend for us.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've seen a ton with connected medical devices and the OT practices, because you're referring to oil and gas and not being owned, and all that stuff's coming front and center and securing these legacy things. So it's crazy.
IoT and OT, IOMT devices. There's some great tech out there for finding those devices. There's some really cool tech out there now for locking those devices down. There's been a lot of cases where I've got a robot, or I've got an assembly line or a manufacturing line, and somebody comes in to do maintenance, or even at a hospital. And in the past, we wouldn't think twice about Johnny coming in and opening his laptop and jacking into a machine to do a routine maintenance check, until Johnny came in with malware. And now I don't have access to that machine anymore. And that machine makes me millions of dollars, right? So, what kind of processes can you go through to check and make sure that Johnny stopped by the security desk and had his laptop scanned before he plugged it into the assembly line or the machine or whatever? So yeah, I mean, and it is a people process and technology. It's not tech, it's not just people, it's not just process, right? You have to be thinking and mindful of all three of those things.
Right. And you can't just go back up and buy $50 million worth of tools, because some of the things that we're seeing, and we partner with Worldwide, is customers don't have the resources and manpower, which we talked about, and they want to have more key partners, and it's an ecosystem of people that are going to understand their business, number one, and number two, consolidate threat intelligence, and three, leverage those tools at 90% from a PS delivery, and then an ongoing tuning and whatnot. I hope you didn't crack something there.
No, it's my ink pen. I'm not going to write anything down, so it doesn't matter anyway. Got it all right here.
That's why I had you on. I didn't think you had a press.
Well, I used to have a photographic memory, but I've run out of film. They went digital on me, so I'm trouble now.
Right. So the file cabinet's full of
it's full
legacy classic stuff. So yeah, and automation, right? On the provider side, there's a lack of automation, and that's what the hackers are using is machine learning and automation. So throw that out there to you and seeing how you're advising customers, or if that's something that you guys do.
Yeah, I mean, we have a huge AI ML ops practice that specializes in the automation space, machine learning and artificial intelligence, which we'll say machine learning. And look where that's being applied mostly that we're seeing is in the behavioral analytics. How do I look at the mind of a hacker and get into their patterns, right? Because as obtuse as people want to be, everybody has a signature. And if I can identify that signature and the processes that they were using, it becomes easier to say, maybe this code is a result of this process. And so behavioral analytics is a big thing right now that people are looking at. How do I create a signature and put a signature to that person and share that with my peers to say, if you see this behavior, right, know that Johnny the bad guy is coming, and being able to do that in the same way that we would create a CVE for any other piece of code, right? But be able to create that for behavioral analytics. That's a big trend. The other thing I will tell you too, and this is obviously it's WWT and Fortinet, but shameless plug, but being able to automate in your cyber vault and your cyber recovery arena, the firewall and how it responds to certain actions to be able to serve itself extremely well in a ransomware cyber vault type environment through automation is a big deal. And we really like the open API concepts and the ability to do that with you guys.
So Chris, that's one of the things I was going to touch on is we leverage a lot of artificial intelligence and machine learning from our FortiGuard labs, number one.
Yeah.
So you're thinking 20 years worth of data and matching that with, NVIDIA and their platform, and then 750,000 customers, plus all the other sources that we glean intelligence from, that allows us to automate. And you talk about our, next gen firewall being market leading from a performance perspective, and from what we deliver from a Forti deploy and being able to manage from one place, as well as our Forti AI, which is now XDR product. That and the EDR for cyber insurance, and this allows us to get in front of ransomware, partnering with you, talking about your complex vault and clean data and all the cool stuff that that's what a customer needs to get back online when they're under a ransomware attack. They do pay for that value add, and a lot of people don't know. How do you? We were out on the Roadshow talking about, hey, does your CFO have a policy to negotiate and buy crypto if you do get compromised?
Yeah, not even the thought at the executive level of, do I have a crypto wallet in case I have to pay? Like, no, we don't have that set up. I talked to some people in the data protection, data infrastructure, data center people, and they hey, we've got reliable backups and we're good. And we're just going to buy this box from this vendor, and because they sell cyber recovery. And I go, well, are you segmenting that? Are you putting firewalls into it per clean room? Are you automating the firewall policy management? Can you do all your backups through the firewall in a window that's small, so that you don't leave yourself exposed for a long period of time? And do you have the speed built into that process to get through that process in a timely fashion? And so those are considerations that I think people are misunderstanding about. Well, I've got killer backups. I've been doing disaster recovery for a long time. And it's like, this is different. This is a different problem. It's a different attack. It's a different management construct, and it requires a different way of thinking about it.
Right. And you talk about being young enough to remember when it was okay to have that full backup window on Sunday night.
Sure. Let it run 10, 12 hours.
10, 12 hours, no problem.
Yeah.
Sure. One of the things with the consolidation in the market, and a lot of news, especially the last couple of days between and the payer and provider space, we've seen that the ransomware attackers are picking 4 or 5 different points during the transaction from announcement to closing. And that's exploiting customers because there's so many moving parts, and they're focused on, the finance guys come in and they talk about these things. And there's, I always talk about technical debt. And you and I both young enough to talk to customers that they know they're getting acquired, and you're in the middle of talking about a project and they stop and they don't. And then they neglect voice and firewalls and networks, and they've got ESPN classic backup, and they're ripe targets. So we're always trying to partner, with Worldwide and other firms to talk to those acquiring customers. It used to be a spreadsheet, Chris, right? You put a spreadsheet together, go buy somebody. It's going to be endpoint. It's going to cost you, $37 times however many seats you buy. Now it's so much more complex.
It is. But, I tell you, when I was a kid, I had a 57 Chevy pickup, straight up 235 6-banger engine. I could sit on the inside fender well, change the plugs, rotate the distributor a little bit to get the timing set, and I'm good. Mileage, not so good. Performance, horsepower for the size engine, not so great. Now I have a 3500 dually diesel. I don't get in there and touch nothing. It's super complex, but I can put fuel in it. I can take it in for regular service, and the experts can deal with all the complexity. So for me, all that complexity has been obfuscated. It's not visible. It's not complicated. It's not hard for me to get in and drive and enjoy the vehicle. Much better performance, much better horsepower to weight ratio through complexity. And so I tell people all the time, it's like, yes, you're introducing complexity, but it's a complex problem. The trick is the efficacy with which we can consume that complexity. Like, can I go put that super complex thing together, but operate it much the same as I operate my backups today? Yeah, you can, right? And it takes the right kind of complexity and the right kind of tech to make that happen. But that's the key. How can I put that complexity into my environment to protect me at the right level I want to be protected, and yet still operate in a fairly easy way? And so, and that's what I think, again, one of those misnomers about, ransomware protection, and how do you build the vault? How do you build the clean room? And how do you segment the network? And how do you time and do you have a sliding window? Like, don't do your backups every day at 10 p.m. If I'm a hacker, I'm going, hey, it's 10 o'clock at 10:05. I'm launching this event, right? Change it up, do it at different hours of the day. There's technology. You can snap your stuff off without disruption of production, and then pick a 2-hour window to shoot that over to your vault, do your data analytics to make sure that it's clean, valid data. Now you got your gold copy.
Yes. And so it's interesting, Chris, with all the complexity, with what our fabric story is, and you alluded to this, is we have just broken through having 500 ecosystem partners. So whether it's, and your part of your charter is to deal with the multi-cloud, hybrid cloud environments, as well as security. And, we're very proud that we have an open ecosystem with, name a major cloud player, name a major co-location site, tons of backup providers. We integrate with a lot of our competitors, more of their stuff than they do. So when you're, as a multi-brand reseller that sells the solution that says we're going to deliver this, that's how we think defense in depth. One of the things that we're seeing as well in the pandemic is, supercharged digital adoption and work from anywhere, and then forcing the zero trust because the four walls are different than when we were younger. Like, hey, we build out a data center and people are repurposing their data centers for something more important because hospitals,
rec rooms, pool tables, ping pong tables,
sure, what have you, a bowling alley inside the hospital, whatever they're doing. So now you just totally supercharged where I was going. That gives us the ability though to make sure that customers get the opportunity to be protected and connect into all those different environments. And we would love to back up a Fortinet truck with any customer, but sometimes it's like our Deceptor product. You talk about getting ahead of ransomware. You want to see those signatures. We got a Deceptor product, and honeypotting has grown at like 450%. If you're not talking to us, you're talking to somebody else. But that Deceptor product, how many breaches have been on two-factor authentication? Mail's still a number one threat vector. We've got patient portals. You've got clinical trials portals. We've got quite a few clinical trials companies that are customers because they've moved everything to the cloud and they've got all the people they're doing research on logging in and logging all that stuff. So it's very cool because you have to understand how many things, and you talk about speed.
Yeah.
Right. And speed in a ransomware attack, you as a trusted advisor is going to tell a customer, you're not going to really care what the label is on the box. You're just going to care that we're done with the event and you didn't get compromised. Right.
Pretty much. I mean, that's the game, right? If you open up the hood, do you know if it's a Bosch starter on your car or not? Do you care? Nobody cares. Did it start? Yes. Did you get to go where you were going? Yes. Okay. Then who cares? Are you using e-spark plugs? I don't know. Do you care? It starts. It got me to where I want to go. Doesn't matter. And I think people are, you mentioned something though about the integration and the work you do with your ecosystem. I think that the trend of I'm going to create the silver bullet product that's going to do everything is a little ambitious. I think in today's environment, the companies that I see doing really well and succeeding well have adopted this mindset that I'm not the only game in town, but I'm a key link to the game. And so I need to be able to play well as a team, right? And be a team player. And so whether that's an Infoblox integration with Okta and Fortinet to be able to say, Johnny's got this laptop and this laptop's trusted and or not, and be able to put the person, the device, the location, all together quickly and be able to tell a firewall, change policy real quick because Johnny ain't on his laptop. Johnny's sitting here next to me. Those are the things where I think the maturity and the mindset of I need to play well with others. Cybersecurity is a team sport. And I think that's something that you guys do really well.
No, and thanks, Chris. And the other thing, you talk about people, process, technology. That's one of the things you hit on. And some of it's not, buying $50 million worth of tools and hiring, 900 people because they're not there to go do all this stuff. But with the whole pandemic, a lot of asset management has been neglected. So, do you, as a customer, do you know what is in your environment from a hardware perspective? What's in software? Have your policies been updated? Contracts, talk about third party and fourth party risk. Have you been evaluating your key suppliers down the 30,000 is probably tough, but I can remember when I was on the partner side getting hey, I know you signed this BAA or whatever our contract language is, but you guys need to update this because the world's changed. So
yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of firms out there that are paying for a couple of things. One is I want to score and rate my suppliers on their profile. And the second thing is, hey, if you're going to be a vendor supplier to me, just know that we're going to pen test you, and it's going to be frequent. And it's going to be furious, and so I think, again, in this new age of ransomware attacks and the complexity and severity of the attacks, I think people are starting to understand that, look, if I want to play in the world, again, going back to it's a team sport. If you're going to supply parts to me, you're going to have to undergo this kind of scrutiny because I'm not going to expose myself just for the ease of, there's probably another partner out there that could do what you do. And that's that differentiator, right? And I think it's important too that the people are posting, you know, how they're scoring, right, as a means of competing for the business. You know, pick me because my processes, my people, my tech are going to keep you secure, right? It's not about me. It's about, hey, you're my customer. I'm here for service. I'm going to make sure that you're not owned through me, right? And that responsibility and accountability it's a big deal.
Yeah, and we're seeing that with the medical device manufacturers now. They're talking about that differentiation with embedding security in their products. And some have things where they're not going to put a FortiGate in somebody's heart stent or pacemaker, but they're embedding technology. And there's some of the major compromises. Fortinet's protected some of that lab equipment, so that's another deep conversation. I don't know what else you have on tech, Chris, but I mean, we could talk for like a day if you want.
I mean, tech has such a nice broad. I mean, there's pictures of tech, right? I like tech. Two-wheel tech is good. Amplifiers, guitars, there's some good tech.
Oh, for sure. I mean, my kid's a guitarist. So let's move on to tunes. Thanks for transitioning us over. So normally we discuss a band and how their songs align to the business problem. I emailed you like a long list, Chris, and say, hey, I don't know your music taste. I think you're like 36 years old. You're like, dude, thank you. And you immediately sent me back and said, I'll take ACDC. Okay. And so to me, I was like, all right. So I had Les Brown on a couple weeks ago, and he was like, well, you're going to do Jimmy Buffett. And I'm like, you're going to make me do some homework. I like the 150 songs I can crash my car to. So before we talk about the tunes or why ACDC, Chris, I want you to talk about your side hustle podcast. That's pretty cool. And then I'm going to tell you that's why I brought you on the show.
Yeah. So a buddy of mine and I were on a motorcycle trip, and when we stopped for fuel, depending on, what part of the day it is, we talk about a myriad of subjects, right? Music, cigars, bourbon, the road we just rode, the road we're going to ride. And we just got this, during the pandemic, we got together and started this podcast called Fuel Stop Chats. And it is that. It's a motorcycle oriented podcast, but we'll have guests on like Mark LaBelle from Dirty Honey or Wes Schultz from the Lumineers. We're trying to get a couple of guys from Oliva Cigars. We're trying to get people on. So it's a broad spectrum of topics, but it's a lot of fun, and it's a great divestiture from the typical stuff we do on a day to day.
No, so that's cool. So I use my Instagram account as practice marketing because I'm technically in marketing. So when we were talking and shooting the breeze, I was telling you, I said, hey, you ever hear of virtually speaking? You're like, yeah, I've heard of Fletch and virtually speaking. He does that as well. He deals with music. Maybe, he's the podfather. So I don't know if I can get him on the show, but let's talk ACDC. So ACDC, remember driving in the Midwest in the winter with the windows down, and ACDC, all kinds of great tunes from them. They also, I think of them as a tech tune because they were a big part of Iron Man, right? So Shoot to Thrill and Back in Black, and Iron Man is a huge technical superhero. So since you're the guest, Chris, what one song, and I've got a list of songs because I have no idea what you're going to throw out there, but
come on, you can't pick.
No, I'm going to pick, but you get the first song.
Oh, well, so here's the deal. I graduated high school in 1980. I had been introduced to ACDC just prior to that. 1980, Bon Scott dies. Everybody thinks, oh, that's the end. You can't replicate that voice. Brian Johnson comes on the scene, and, the rest is history, right? For those about to rock and Back in Black. So Back in Black, my name is Chris Black. So Back in Black is something that's always kind of stuck in my mind as like, there's so many good songs, Thunderstruck, and for those about to rock, Hell's Bells. I mean, the list goes on, but the reason that I picked that was, when somebody, like, I remember when Elvis passed, my parents' reaction was much, much deeper than mine. Yes, I was aware of who he was, and certainly appreciate, the change in music that he brought, but it didn't affect me. Bon Scott dies my senior year of high school. I'm thinking, oh man, that's one of those memorable things in your life. It leaves an indelible imprint. And so anyway, and the other thing that I will tell you that I appreciate about these guys, and hardcore musicians will argue all day long, the musicianship isn't as complex as, say, the drummer for Tool or Neil Peart for Rush, and you look at the complexities of their music and you listen to ACDC, and it's usually the same kind of, rhythm, whatever. They've had 3 drummers, so, but they're the number 6th in the US all-time selling albums. And so you can argue about the simplistic all you want, but it goes back to the thing we were talking about earlier, right? If it's simple to use, how complex does it need to be to me, right? I know that it's complex for guys to get up on stage. I've done it, and it's not easy to put a song out, however simple the riff is, right? But these guys had a hook, they had a sound, and it's moving. And so anyway, that's kind of why I appreciate these guys. There's lots of bands out there that I appreciate, but you asked me to pick one. So
I'm going to take a bite of the apple too, and I'm going to go a slightly different direction. So I picked a couple songs because I think of Ransomware as "Are You Ready" off Razor's Edge. So if I'm a customer, are you ready? Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap.
Done dirt cheap.
Because normally, because the hackers used to, before they really monetized at scale, they would do this stuff on the cheap and compromise customers. Now they're doing it at scale. Then the other one that I like is to talk about a cover. And I was watching the Foo Fighters do a cover of, I forgot, I didn't even know what the song was now. I didn't write the damn song down, but they did an awesome cover of something from 1980. I'm going to put it in the link when we're done. But the one thing about ACDC, you talk about, it's simple, right? So if you take great drummers, you talk about Neil Peart, mine's Taylor Hawkins, Alex Van Halen. Those guys could drum anywhere, right? So when ACDC is a great band, is Phil Rudd a great drummer? Not so sold. However, their sound, so every rhythm guitarist doesn't get the PR that Malcolm Young, Dave Grohl, and Stone Gossard, those guys help make the tune. Like if Malcolm Young is not a great guitarist, ACDC is not a great band, because while Angus Young gets all the press,
but rhythm guitar, man.
And you talk about, getting in the car and drive, getting on your motorcycle. I'm a Jeep guy. Like, it's so convincing. When we were talking, I'm like, man, I've never ridden a motorcycle, but I'm thinking about riding a motorcycle, Chris. It sounds like fun with what you guys do. So,
it's a blast. Yeah. I'll tell you another ACDC song. I mentioned it, but I'm gonna put it in the context of Ransomware. The look on the board's face when they get owned, thunderstruck.
Thunderstruck.
They're like, right. But you talk about the drummers with Rudd, then, Wright was there for a minute, then Slade, and then Slade gets replaced by Rudd, right? There's not a lot of bands that could swap out their drummers like that. But because the music isn't that complex or reliant on the drummer, right? For other than that pounding, right? But yeah, I mean, ninth, I said sixth, ninth highest selling band in the US, with 75 million albums sold here in America. You can argue all you want about the musician, but it doesn't matter, right? At the end of the day, somebody made some bank. These guys are worldwide. They have a legacy that will live well beyond them, as we already know.
Yeah.
Malcolm passed away, in 2017. And again, you think, okay, well, that's the end of the band. Brian Johnson suffering with hearing loss. That's the end of the band, and then Axel comes on and does some stuff with them, so it's like, I don't know, but anyway, longevity and perseverance and all those things kind of come into that ransomware conversation, right? It's, the hackers are going to be persistent. They're going to be, continuing on and driving on, no matter what the tool or the drummer or the guitarist, right? They're going to continue to play. But we have to be mindful of that. But yeah, so anyway, that's kind of why I picked, but it was funny when you sent me the list. I was like, dude, this isn't, I could have picked any band off there. That's all wheelhouse stuff.
Well, maybe we'll have you back to do something different, once this gets more mature and we get, have a different topic, right? I mean, you cover so many different, legs of the planet on tech. We'll pick a different band. I mean, I'm happy to have you back. I appreciate you being on. Anybody that's tuned in, You can get a hold of me directly through email, jmervis@fortinet.com, chris.black, BLACK @WWT.com. You can DM either of us on LinkedIn. Working through my next guest in the format. I don't know if this is going to go to a podcast or continue on the webinar, but it's either going to be Joel Tu from CDW, their data practice, Rob Short from Liquid Networks, Bill McLeod from Megaport and his team. I have no idea, but Chris, any closing thoughts? I really appreciate you coming on, and I know we had a little technical snag at the beginning, but I mean, you hit the home run like I thought you would.
No, man, it's been great. I really enjoyed it, and I'm honored to be on here. I love it.
Thanks, man. Well, have a good weekend. We'll talk soon. Put the
All right,
hammer
brother.
down.
Take care. Hammer down.
See ya.